Most people spend their entire working lives in a system that was never designed to explain itself. The part nobody explains is what actually changes when the number hits a million. Not your lifestyle, not your habits, the math. Below that number, progress feels painfully slow, in ways that feel like normal life. Above it, the math starts behaving differently. And the difference isn't motivation. It isn't discipline. It's arithmetic. Think about how savings actually work. You earn, you spend, you save what's left. You repeat. Your money grows, just not fast enough to feel like anything. At $10,000, a 7% return gives you $700 a year. That's a car repair. At $100,000, $7,000. Still not enough to change how you live. Still not enough to feel real. So you keep working, keep waiting. It's compounding. There's just not enough of it yet. Something different happens at $1 million. That same 7% doesn't give you $700. It gives you $70,000. Same rate, completely different reality. That's the threshold. Here's the number that makes it concrete. U.S. median household income, what the median American household earns in a full year, roughly $75,000. $1 million invested at a long-run 7% real return generates roughly $70,000. Same number. One requires a commute, a boss, 40 hours a week. The other requires a portfolio in an index fund. That $70,000 isn't money you freely spend. The math on that is more specific, and we'll get there. But that's not the point. The point is velocity. Your capital is now growing at the same rate most people work to survive. Below it, labor mode. Income follows time. Above it, capital mode. Income follows balance. And those two modes are not taxed the same way. Earn $75,000 from a salary, ordinary income tax. Mid to upper 20s effective rate for most Americans. Earn $75,000 from long-term investment gains, federal capital gains rates sit at 0%, 15%, or 20%, depending on your income. State taxes and surcharges apply depending on where you live. For most people in that range, 15%. Same destination, different rate. It's written into the code. The question is whether you're reading it. Now, let's make this a real person. A public school teacher, 30 years in the classroom, never earned more than $65,000 a year. Contributed steadily to a 403(b), the public sector version of a 401(k), every single year. At retirement, her portfolio crosses $1 million. That year, her investments generate more in compounding value than she earned in a single year of teaching. She didn't change careers, didn't start a business, didn't inherit anything. She just stayed in the market long enough for the math to take over. The math had finally caught up to the job. That's the story most people never hear, because it doesn't make a compelling headline. Nobody covers the teacher whose index fund quietly crossed 7 figures. But it happens, more often than the cultural conversation around wealth suggests. Here's what almost nobody talks about. According to Federal Reserve data, roughly 1 in 10 American households holds $1 million or more in investable financial assets, not counting home equity. 1 in 10. After a lifetime of working, saving, and hearing about compound interest, roughly 10% actually reach the threshold where the math structurally changes. That's not a moral statement. It's a measurement. And the gap between those who do and those who don't almost never comes down to income alone. It comes down to time in the market, consistency, and understanding what you're actually building toward. So what can you actually take from $1 million portfolio? And for how long? This is where most financial content gets it wrong. The 4% rule. You've heard it. Withdraw 4% from $1 million, $40,000 a year, and your money lasts forever. That is not what the research says. William Bengen's 1994 study and the Trinity study that followed tested 4% over a defined window. Not forever, 30 years. For a traditional retiree in their 60s, a powerful benchmark. For 40 or 50 years, or early retirement, the math needs to be tighter. Most research on longer horizons points to 3.25% to 3.5%. 4%, $40,000 a year, 30-year runway. 3.5%, $35,000, longer window. Neither is a luxury life, but both represent something that didn't exist the day before you crossed the line. For the first time, your money's contribution is in the same conversation as your labors. Why don't more people get there? The first $100,000 is brutal because the math is almost invisible. You save $1,000. The market adds $70. You feel nothing. It's working. There's just not enough of it yet. Watch what happens as the base grows. $100,000? Roughly $7,000 a year. $250,000? Roughly $17,500. $500,000? Roughly $35,000. $1 million? Roughly $70,000. The rate never changes, always 7%. But at $1 million, the absolute number starts outpacing what most people can manually save in a year. That's the inflection. Compounding stops feeling like a concept. It starts feeling like a second income. Leave $1 million untouched. 7% real return, 20 years. No contributions, no withdrawals. Result? Approximately $3.87 million. The money didn't work harder. There was just more of it working. If nobody laid this out clearly for you, the like button is how it reaches someone who needs it. The $1 million threshold isn't symbolic. It's the exact point where a historically average market return produces the economic output of a full-time worker. Roughly 1 in 10 households ever reach it. Not because it requires genius, not because it requires a 6-figure salary, but because most people never see the math clearly enough to build toward it with intention. The teacher who crossed it didn't do anything extraordinary. She just understood what she was building and didn't stop. $1 million won't protect you from inflation, won't eliminate risk, won't guarantee anything. But it will do one specific thing. Make your capital generate value at the same rate most people only reach by working full-time. Not magic, not a shortcut. Just what happens when the math finally has enough to work with. You don't cross that line by accident. But once you do, the math starts compounding in your favor in a way it simply couldn't before.